Commando, one steak medium rare, one roast beef split.
The kitchens at restaurants like the Palm 2 in New York City are going full blast. Steaks, chops, roasts, bursting with flavor and fat.
Want a porterhouse?
Filet mignon.
The double steak.
People are eating like they haven't in years. Creamed spinach, lobster drowning in butter.
Cheers, love.
It's all part of a new diet craze sweeping the nation.
I can eat a 16-ounce steak. I can have eggs in the morning. At lunchtime, have a piece of fish, and actually be losing weight.
Losing weight by gorging on fat and protein? It's more than a diet. It's a gastronomic revolt. Just ask Lenny at Sarge's Deli.
The same people who would have ordered white meat turkey now come in and say they want corned beef and pastrami. And if you ask them they want it lean, they say, no, leave the fat on. That's where all the flavor is. And they don't worry about the fat in it anymore.
This is going to be our bean. Oh.
And they aren't worrying about what they've been told over the past 2 decades about healthy eating. Drucy Diaz-Phelps feels like she's getting away with something.
Because that's how it's programmed, when I went to school. What's the worst thing for your heart? Grease. It's to clog your aortas. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have a massive stroke.
Drucy is on the Atkins diet, where the forbidden foods are the carbohydrates. So although Drucy can eat all the eggs, cheese, and bacon she wants for breakfast, she can't have toast, or waffles, or pancakes, or cereal. Sounds completely bizarre, but in 2 months, much to her amazement, Drucy has lost 30 pounds.
It's like, it can't be healthy? No. Healthy? Fat? Mm-mm.
The man behind this high-fat diet is no stranger to the American public. More than 25 years ago, he wrote a book called Dr. Atkins' Diet Revolution. But even though it was a popular bestseller, the Atkins diet was condemned by the medical establishment as a danger to the public's health, something the young cardiologist emphatically denied.
The diet is dangerous or hazardous is patently ridiculous.
But few people were listening. His high-fat diet was beaten out by the low-fat, no-fat craze of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And that familiar food pyramid endorsed by the USDA and the American Heart Association. You know the routine. It tells us to eat more carbohydrates, like bread, pasta, and cereal, and fewer fats and oils.
Now, with answers to your questions about health and feeling better, here is Dr. Robert Atkins.
Greetings, friends.
But Atkins is back, this time with his own radio show and another best-selling book, Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution.
I have been on the Atkins diet since January. I've lost 32 pounds.
Good.
I'm never hungry.
And this time, he's not alone. His high-protein, low-carb approach is all the rage in best-selling diet books like Sugar Busters, Protein Power, and The Zone.
This time it's working a lot better. This time it will make that change that should have taken place in the 70s. This time talking to a new generation of people who have been brainwashed systematically into thinking that fat on the body equated with fat in the diet.
It seems the world has finally caught up with Dr. Atkins. Over the past 20 years, some of the evidence in favor of the low-fat diet has started to crumble. For example, while fat consumption has gone down, heart disease has gone up, and so has obesity. That's right. While the government has been pushing a low-fat, high-carb diet, we've become fatter than ever.
We are consuming probably a 15% lower fat diet than we were 20, 30 years ago, and we're 30% more obese.
See this?
Dr. Kevin Vigilante is a clinical associate professor of medicine at Brown University and co-author with Mary Flynn of a new book called Low-Fat Lies, High-Fat Frauds. He's no fan of the Atkins diet, as you'll see, but he's also no fan of the so-called low-fat foods we've all been sold on.
People will see, low-fat or no-fat yogurt, and they'll think they can eat as much of this stuff as they want. They don't realize that this stuff has been pumped with sugar now to give it taste.
For taste.
Right. You get this false sense of security. You get duped into eating more of it, and we're basically getting fat on low-fat foods.
From 190 to 140, so you lost 50 pounds.
Dr. Atkins feels vindicated by this amazing turn of events. He says the healthiest way to eat is to turn that food pyramid upside down, to eat high-fat, low-carbohydrate foods, just like he's been saying all along.
I can see that the scientific community has just about switched around 180 degrees. It turns out that I wasn't wrong, but that a lot of these people making policy were.
What's the theory behind the Atkins diet? Two things. First, it's well known that eating animal proteins makes you feel fuller faster, so you end up eating less. Second, and this is the controversial part, eating carbohydrates like bread, pasta, and potatoes causes the body to produce insulin. Insulin turns the carbs into sugar, our main source of energy. Whatever sugar we don't use right away gets stored in our bodies as fat. But on the Atkins diet, the lack of carbohydrates for energy tricks our body into thinking that it's starving, at which point it switches over to burning its own fat. Now that's called ketosis. No controlled studies have ever been done on ketosis, but many scientists worry that going around in starvation mode for months at a time can't be all that healthy. Atkins disagrees, citing his thousands of patients who he claims have never been harmed by it.
People in ketosis are simply people who are burning their fat. That's all it means.
And you don't think there's any danger at all in that?
I clearly know that there is no danger, and I also know that the scientific community who deals with the study of ketones knows that too.
At Miami's Mount Sinai, Dr. Arthur Agatston has become something of a convert.
Take a slow deep breath.
Not necessarily to Atkins, but to low-carbohydrate diets in general.
I tried the low-carbohydrate diet myself, and after years of failure with myself and my family on low-fat diets, basically getting fatter as the whole American population was, I lost weight and wasn't hungry.
Immediately, Agatston decided to put his science where his mouth was, to do a controlled study with 60 patients. Quite simply, he compared the standard American Heart Association low-fat diet with a low-carb Atkins-style diet, but without the ketosis. The results were amazing. Once again, high fat meant less weight.
Compared to the Heart Association diet, our patients lost more weight.
What surprised this cardiologist even more was that the Atkins-style diet seemed to be healthier for his patients than the American Heart Association diet.
Their lipid profiles improved dramatically as they lost weight. In particular, their triglycerides dropped dramatically, and their good cholesterol, the HDL, increased.
With renewed support for the Atkins diet have come millions of new recruits. Most, like Howard Cammerdell, were at first skeptical.
I thought, man, there's no way this is going to work. This goes against everything I've ever been told.
Last year, Howard weighed 350 pounds. Worried that he might die young and leave his family high and dry, he applied for life insurance, but was turned down. Desperate at that point, he started the diet.
There's been days when I've consumed mass quantities of food and still lost weight.
Howard has lost 80 pounds in the last year, and his cholesterol level has improved dramatically, all by cutting back on carbohydrates and eating lots of fatty foods and lots of animal protein, including now and then a half a pound of bacon in one sitting.
Every meal, I have meat. If I have a choice between meat or vegetables, I will eat meat. It's what I eat. It's what I am. It does a body good.
Testimonials like that make Dr. Atkins beam, but critics cringe. First of all, studies show that browned meats are carcinogenic, so we're advised not to eat too much of them. Secondly, by cutting out many fruits and vegetables, which are high in carbohydrates, dieters could be missing out on lots of vital nutrients. And finally, critics say while some fats are good for you, not all fats are the same. The greasy, saturated fats from meat and dairy products, countless studies link them to clogged arteries.
Well, unfortunately, you can lose weight on chemotherapy, too. Not necessarily the best way to go about it. By creating the impression for people that eating unlimited amounts of meat and salami and pepperoni, and there'll be no debt to pay down the road, I think is irresponsible.
Vigilante says the healthy fats are the omega-3 fats in canola oil, fish oil, and certain nuts, especially walnuts. Best of all, says Dr. Vigilante, are the monounsaturated fats in olive oil, the age-old cornerstone of the diets followed by Mediterranean countries. Don't you worry that you're asking people to eat saturated fats that could put them at risk for heart disease?
Wouldn't that be silly, since I've already treated 60,000 people and I've been reversing their heart disease? They've come to me being told they need a bypass. After they've been on our program, they don't need a bypass. Oh, what about the bottom line? Don't we look at the bottom line anymore? Is that over? Is that finished? What about the fact that the results indicate that I'm right?
His results, though impressive, are still anecdotal. Atkins has never done any research on the safety of his diet.
For a physician to say that this is completely safe and without risk, after all we know about the risks of cancer and heart disease associated with this manner of eating, I think is not responsible unless you have some pretty darn good studies to back you up.
While scientists continue to investigate the risks of eating certain fats, many who have bought into the Atkins diet say the real here and now risk for them is not going on the diet.
I am healthier because the weight is not on my body. My heart is not feeling the weight on my body. That's where the healthy part comes in. I'm not starving, I'm having a good time, and I'm losing weight. I mean, what better can you have?
I don't know why the diet works. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me either. But I know it works. I know that it's changed my life. I know that Dr. Atkins has made an impact on me.